Getting ready to go and shoot a wedding. Well, an elopement, but it's still a wedding. It still counts. But yeah, I wanted to make a quick video. I've finally got some ND filters. I didn't get variable ND filters though, because pretty much every one of them has the X cross in them, the higher you go in the ND range, and I feel like I don't want that happening. I just got different filters I can screw on. So finally I'll be able to keep my shutter speed right for 24 frames per second for vlogging. I can keep my aperture at 2.8. Okay, so here's the deal. I wanted to give some quick tips, little things that you can do to improve your photography and videography. They don't really take that much to make everything look better. One tip is always use the right focus mode. If you got a moving subject, you want to use a continuous focus mode. If you're using like a single spot autofocus instead of a continuous autofocus, you'll focus on somebody, right? Or something, and you're taking a picture, you hear the beep, it focused, and you're trying to keep them in focus. If they move a little bit, and that means if they move like back or forth, they're not in focus no more. You gotta have some sort of continuous focus to keep them in focus while they're moving and track them. That is tip number one. Tip number two, don't be super worried about ISO and how high your ISO is. I know that it gets grainy and whatnot, the higher your ISO goes, but these new mirrorless cameras and these new cameras coming out here in the past year or so, or 2 years, maybe even 3 years, they got pretty good low light capabilities. So, and there's things that you can do to denoise your image a lot easier. So don't really worry too much about ISO. You know, if you have to have a higher ISO, that means you're gonna have to have a higher shutter speed, which means you're gonna have a more sharp picture. Make sure, if you need a high ISO, don't worry about it being too grainy, because I've been using this thing called Denoise AI from Topaz Labs, and it is amazing. I hiked my ISO up to like 40,000 just to see what it would do, and it cleaned it up perfectly. I couldn't believe it. Gotta clean that up. Tip number three. This could also just be personal preference. For me, I like to, whenever I take a portrait, I like to not leave too much room over somebody's head. So I will crop the top of the picture down or shoot it like that. Close, not too close, but like maybe an inch or two over their head. That way they'll fill the frame more. It just, to me, that just kind of looks better. So that's something you can try. For more cinematic type stuff, film shadow side, not light side. See, this is the light side of my face. If you film shadow side, it looks more dramatic. So that is just a lighting tip. Obviously not that good of an example, but seriously, if you start filming shadow side on somebody's face, I'm telling you, it looks more dramatic. You can film like this, where the light's right in your face, like this. Shadow. I don't know if that looks any better. You get what I'm saying. I mean, not the best lighting situation to show you here, but you get what I'm saying. Another tip for photography is don't worry about what other people's settings are. And what I mean by that is I see people asking, like, big photographers, like bigger, well-known photographers, what settings did you use? What settings did you use? It doesn't matter. You got to know the exposure triangle, ISO, shutter speed, and aperture yourself, because every picture is going to be a different setting. It's just, unless you got a really controlled amount of light, like you're inside and you're using your own lights, that's a controlled situation. So your settings are going to be pretty close to each other. But outside, if you're doing natural light, your settings, you could use the exact same settings as somebody else, and your picture will not look anything like what they did. First of all, the lighting could be different. They're using a different lens. They could be using a different camera. You know? Oh god, this is getting heavy. They could be using a different camera. You know? They're using a different focal length. There's just a bunch of different factors. They edit differently. They would edit differently than you. You can use other people's settings to kind of understand more about why they're using that. But it doesn't really matter what settings another photographer is using. You got to understand. You have to understand why you're using those. And you'll see every picture, if you're shooting in manual, every single picture will have a different shutter speed. It'll have a different ISO. It just all depends. The light changes. You know, it's never gonna be exactly the same. Also, I just wanted to change out my lens here, because I have to use my Sigma 24-70 for the wedding that I'm shooting. But 18 to 24 millimeter is a big difference. Now I'm way away. Plus I wanted to compare these two lenses in the same video. I just want you guys to know right now that a 24-70 is a very good range, you know, for a good bit of photography. Like, you can have a 24-70 here and do all kind of stuff. You can have this one lens for a good amount of time, you know. You can get a 24-70 and a 70-200 and you can basically do anything. Except for things that need really wide lenses. You get let's say you get 16-35, a 24-70, and a 70-200, and you have all those three lenses to do basically any type of photography that you want to do. Alright, I just got done with the wedding that I was gonna shoot. This is very dark. And I'm headed back home. So that was a lot of fun. One day I'll film this stuff for you guys so you can see it. Now I'm back home. That is such a long drive, but it's totally worth it.